Google Analytics 4 offers automatic event tracking capabilities for things like file downloads, outbound clicks, or scroll tracking. But did you know that the automatic scroll tracking in GA4 tracks only when a visitor scrolls down below the 90% mark? In this video, I will show you how to implement scroll tracking in Google Analytics 4, not only for 90%, but for other thresholds as well. For example, 25, 50, or 75%. Hey, my name is Julius and welcome to Analytics Mania YouTube channel, where you can learn Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. And if you want to stay up to date with Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing. Speaking of scroll tracking in Google Analytics 4, there are two approaches that you can choose from. In this video, I will explain both of them. So make sure you stick around till the end of this video in order to make an informed decision. So without further ado, let's take a look. In this video, I presume two things. The first one is that you already have created a Google Analytics 4 property. And the second thing is that you have already installed it in Google Tag Manager by using the GA4 configuration tag that will look something like this. And in this measurement ID field, you have entered the ID of your website data stream. If you have no idea what I just said, then I recommend checking the description of this video where I will post a link to another tutorial on how to install Google Analytics 4. So since we are going to implement scroll tracking with Google Tag Manager, first thing that we need to do is that we have to go to Google Analytics 4, then go to Admin, Data Streams, and click on your website data stream. Then click this gear icon right here and disable scroll tracking. Then click Save. Now let's go to Google Tag Manager. And let's create a scroll trigger because by default, scroll tracking in Google Tag Manager is disabled. So let's go to Triggers, New, Trigger Configuration, and then click Scroll Depth. Here you should select Vertical Scroll Depth, and then you can enter various thresholds that you want to track. Usually people choose 25, 50, 75, and 90. Then keep all the other settings as they are and name this trigger simply Scroll or anything else you want. Click Save, and now we can check whether this trigger is working properly. So click the preview button, then you should enter the URL of your website where you're going to test this scroll tracking trigger. And once you see the debugger connected here and here, now you can scroll down, and then after you scroll, let's say below 50% of the page height, then let's go to the preview mode and see what we see there. And here you should start seeing some scroll depth events right here. Now, if you click on it, you can see here that there's some data about the scroll in the data layer. However, if you plan to use some of these data points in your setup, for example, the percentage of how much did the visitor scroll down, you will not be able to do that because if you go to the variables section, you will see that you have no variables related to scroll, unless of course you have enabled them at some point in the past. But if you haven't done that yet, you should go to Google Tag Manager, Variables, Configure, and then enable all scroll related variables right here. Actually, in this video, we're going to use just scroll depth threshold, but maybe in the future you will need this one and this one, so you can enable all of them. They will not have much impact on your page performance. So once you do that, then let's click the preview button once again. And when you refresh the page, let's scroll down again for at least 50%. And then you will see that we have several scroll depth events. You can click on one of them, then go to Variables. And here you will see that we have some variables related to scrolling. For example, this one is definitely useful, and we plan to use this in our setup of scroll tracking in Google Tag Manager. Now it's time for us to create a Google Analytics 4 tag because we want to send scroll events to GA4. And to do that, you should go to Tags in Google Tag Manager, click New, then click Tag Configuration and select GA4 event. In this tag, you should select your existing GA4 configuration tag, and then you have to enter the event name that you're going to use. And here there are two approaches, and you can choose one of them. The first one is based on the built-in scroll tracking of enhanced measurement within Google Analytics 4. So in that case, all scroll events are named scroll, just like this, all lowercase, and then you can send an event parameter that is named percent scrolled, exactly like this. And then as a value, we can send the value of this variable, which is scroll depth threshold. So we can click on this button and then select the scroll depth threshold right here. Then name the tag. And finally, we had to select the trigger, and we have already created one. So just select your existing scroll trigger right here. Then click Save. And now we are going to test it. And once we test this, I will show you an alternative option that you could implement instead. So once you save the tag, click Preview. Then you can scroll down till the very bottom of the page. And here you will see 4 scroll depth events for each threshold. So this is for 25, 50, 75, and 90%. And if you click one of them, you can click on a tag. You will probably see something like this. But if you want to switch to the value mode, you can click values right here. And then you will see that with the scroll event, we sent a parameter called %scrolled, and its value on this particular event was 25%. Let's say if I click this one and click on the tag, I will see that the value of the parameter is different. Now let's go to the debug view of Google Analytics 4 because we want to check whether that event was actually received by GA4. So go to Google Analytics 4 and then go to debug view at the bottom left corner of the interface. And here eventually you should start seeing scroll events coming from your device. So if I click this one, I will see all the parameters that were sent together with this event. I hope that Google Analytics will change this in the future and will handle this automatically. But right now, if you want to start using this parameter as a dimension in Google Analytics, Google Analytics 4, and in this case, what I mean is that if you want to start seeing or using this parameter in your reports, you have to register it as a custom dimension. So to do that, you should go to custom definitions, click create custom dimensions, and here you should enter something like %scrolled. You should keep the scope as event, description can remain blank, and then here you should enter %scrolled like this, and then click save. And within 24 hours, you should start seeing this parameter in your reports, and you will be able to use that in things like Analysis Hub or some other standard reports. But keep in mind that there are some limits for custom dimensions, and as of the moment of recording this video, you can have up to 50 custom dimensions that are text values. So even though we are setting a number, in this case, it is a dimension and that is a text dimension. So basically 50 custom dimensions and 50 custom metrics. But in this case, we are setting dimension, not a metric. So if you already have a lot of custom dimensions registered in your GA4 property and you don't want to create another one because, well, maybe you have some plans to create more important ones in your property, here's another approach that you could take. In this case, we are not going to use a custom dimension. So to do that, let's go to Google Tag Manager and let's pretend that we have created a new GA4 event tag, but obviously in this case, we will just be editing our existing scroll event because we will replace this setup with an alternative approach. So here is what we are going to do. First of all, we should remove this parameter right here because we're not going to send it. And instead of just the name scroll, we could make it more specific. And for each scroll threshold, we could send a unique event name. For example, for 25% scroll threshold, we could send an event which is scroll_25, like that. If the visitor scrolls down below the 50% of the page height, then the event would be like this. Obviously, we could create 4 different tags and 4 different triggers for this case, but this is not very optimal. Instead, we could replace that number with a scroll depth threshold variable, which is like this. So scroll _ and then this variable. And when this tag is fired, Google Tag Manager will replace this part with the actual value of the variable, which is 25, 50, 75, or 90%. Then leave the trigger as it is. And maybe we can rename this event to something like _XX. Click Save. Now let's click the preview button and test everything once again. So now I have refreshed the page. I will scroll down and I will see 4 scroll depth events in the preview mode. I click any of these, then I click on the tag and I see that there was just one thing that was sent, which is event name. There are no parameters. Now let's go to the GA4, again to debug view. And here I should start seeing different events. So instead of, using the custom dimension for scroll threshold, I am using this time 4 different event names. But in this case, there is another limit in Google Analytics 4, and that is 500 unique events per client ID. So in other words, you can track no more than 500 unique event names per single user or per single visitor of your website. So if you have a lot of unique event names, for example, click of one button, click of another button, and they all have different event names, then maybe this approach is not the best for you, and maybe the first option that I showed with the custom parameter, maybe that will work better for you. So this is up to you to decide which option do you choose. And in both cases, you will have to wait for up to 24 hours to start seeing that scroll event data in other reports. For example, in the events section right here, or things like engagement. And that is how you implement scroll tracking in Google Analytics 4. Which option do you prefer more? Single event with a parameter or multiple event names? Why? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.